So, welcome everyone. Let's just make yourself comfortable. I'd just like to open quietly, and then I have a few insights to share with you. I think once we open the practice, uh, and I do understand my little bowl does sound like flying saucers, but I don't really use it to enhance the vibrational experience. It's more just for demarcation to open and close the practice. So please bear with my my lack of sound healing instruments. So let's just begin to just come into a quiet mind. And a quiet mind is really found by seeing that part of your mind that is already quiet. Quiet mind is always available if we're willing to just look or relax outside of our thought. Nowhere else to look but outside of thought. So we're just simply going to the part of our mind that is always quiet. And now the discipline of yoga. So I just wanted to share a few things because today in my own practice, I had some interesting insights. I kind of extended my practice to kind of verify what I'm about to share with you and just explore it. So, no need to keep sitting up. Sit up if you would like. Just make yourself comfortable, because this yin yoga, this approach to the body, is primarily offering us an opportunity to work with the fascia of the body. Yes, and you've heard me say this many times, so this is not new. But what I began to realize is what an opportunity we have using this this remote situation. Because when we're in a formal class setting, the structure is pretty much set, and we come into a pose and you stay in the pose no matter what, because I'm sitting up here and I'm holding time, and then we come out of a pose. And so quietly to do the practice that way, but it holds a certain structure. And if we really start to understand the depth and the fractal nature of the fascia, we have an opportunity to explore in a deeper way and in a little bit different way. Because the fascia is not just a fibrous network. It is that, among many other things, but it's also, it's a container for the fluids of our body, and it's one of the primary transport mediums of the body. So everything that we eat, how nutrition actually enters the cell, depends on the health and the openness of the fascia. How water enters the cell, how oxygen enters the cell, is all primary to this transport network of the fascia. So we want to make sure that when we're exploring it, we're doing it in a way is unique to how we're feeling in the moment to moment, actually. So when we first come into a pose and we come to our range of motion, our range of motion is where we can come into a pose easily. So easily, not feeling much pressure, not really feeling any discomfort unless we have an injury, but that's sort of a different exploration. So the range of motion is coming into the body with a very sort of light pressure where the body would go naturally, yes? And then when we start to go a little bit deeper, either by holding for time or just relaxing or maybe pressing a little bit, creating more pressure, this is what we would call end of motion. So the natural range of motion ends, and we start to go where we're now applying greater pressure, or applying, you might even say, outside force to this fascial system. The thing to be careful of here is if we go too deep and we go too quickly, we're going to trigger a protection mechanism. The body's going to go into protection mode, and we do not want this. So we want the depth of the pose, the way that we're applying this compressor, to be rather unique. And again, this is nothing I've not said before. Most of you that have been practicing with me have an understanding of this. So what I would invite you, what could be a little bit different doing this remotely, is that this is not a static practice and it's not a linear practice. This is a very non-linear, this is a fractal practice. This is a practice where we can start to allow the subconscious to actually guide us, allow the feeling intelligence to start to guide us. So if we just come into a pose and we come to our range of motion and we ease a little bit deeper into our end of motion, and we just stay there and we're just waiting for me to call time or waiting for it to be over, yes, that's one way to practice. The next stage is to start to relax to the point where we start to trust that the subconscious, this feeling intelligence, can start to take over. And oftentimes that will mean some kind of gentle movement, often movement. Sometimes that means coming out, sometimes that means a swaying, sometimes that means changing the position. It can mean any number of things. Sometimes it means going deeper, because this barrier, this fascial barrier that is holding tension between the range of motion and then the deeper sort of unexplored places where we start to apply the pressure, what I'm calling end of motion, also can hold a great deal of our traumas. So energy, tightness, tension, discomfort, pain that has the quality of trauma needs to be approached in an extremely sensitive way. And I'm also suggesting in a non-linear, subconscious way. So if the body starts to move a little bit, starts to shake a little bit, if you have the need to laugh or to yawn or to cry or to make any sounds, this is this sort of deeper fractal energy of the body wanting to express. And so what I was thinking and what I'm encouraging is that we have the opportunity to do that, because you're pretty much by yourself. So, and this is really goes back to the depth and the really the way yoga was originally explored and developed, is that we just followed the natural intelligence of the body, this feeling intelligence. So as long as you feel safe, explore this fascial body in these ways. If you're called to something and you're wanting to explore something in a certain way, please feel free to take that opportunity. So we're sort of taking the structure off the posture that has to be static, and that it's linear, and that if we do this, that will happen. And I'm wanting to open up the space so we go into more of this feeling intelligence. And we start to see that the fascial barrier at the where it feels comfortable with no pressure is really just our entry point. And as we start to ease into more pressure into this end of range of motion, there's energies and there's saying traumas, there's deeper discomforts, there's parts of the body that may have been dormant and stagnant, and these may want to express in ways that are unfamiliar to you. May not just be staying and holding the pose, the body may want to guide you, and I'm encouraging you to listen to that. Okay, so yes, I know that was quite a bit, but I think it's well worth it, because we want to start to really trust our experience of the body as being nonlinear and being fractal, because all of nature is fractal. I mean, just go out and look and you'll see that nothing in our experience of life is really linear if we look very closely. So we have an opportunity to explore the body in this way, and I do think that's a good thing. Okay, so get your big bolster. Let's come on up. Let's start to explore this a bit. And if you don't have the large bolster, then just build yourself something that will bring you to that height. So you could just use a couple of pillows and a blanket. So this would, because it's going to soften down, this would be pretty much, and once you see what we're doing, you can adjust the bolstering the way that you need it. But I'm just going to show it on the large bolster and talk about it. So what we're going to do is, and you may want to, with the bolster or with the pile of blankets, you may want to have something for your head up at the neck area. So what I would like to do is I would just like to sit, so you have the bolster behind you, yeah? And then we're gonna lean over sideways and place your bolstering, I'll just call it bolstering, whatever you're using, on the left rib cage, yeah? So I'm placing the left ribs on the bolstering. So not so much the waist, tempting to go into the waist, tempting to go into the armpit, but I'm asking you to find the broadest part of the rib cage on the left side and place your ribs over that, yeah? So what we'll now do, and stay with me for a moment before you go in, is you can either let the head dangle completely. I'm not recommending that. That's why I said to bring a bit of a pillow or a blanket here. So I have a towel for my head. Doesn't matter for the legs. I have my knees bent so it feels really supportive. You could stretch them out. The most important thing here is to keep the shoulders even. So the right shoulder's over the left shoulder so it doesn't tend to roll forward. So we're coming into a curl. And then what I'd like you to do is bring that right arm up and over the head. So you're extending it out and just let it dangle in the air. If this becomes unsafe, you can bend the elbow and you can always just put the fingers on the floor, the hand on the floor. So the arm is arching up over the head. It can come back a little bit, but not forward. Don't let the arm go forward of the body. Keep the right shoulder over the left shoulder, and we'll just compress now into this. Well, we're compressing, if you notice, into the left ribs, but with the arm extending, we're then drawing out through the right rib cage as well. So very much use the position to explore. So the reason that we set the foundation being still and being quiet is so we're not just reacting to the discomfort. We're not just reacting to this fascial barrier and moving away from it just to become more comfortable. So the discomfort is that edge of moving out of range of motion into these barriers, if you will, these fascial barriers, where what we're suggesting is the body is holding a non-linear energy that we can explore in a way that's unique to us. So we're still using the yin approach as a quiet receptivity, as a place to sink in and allow this, depth to be in some way accumulate. But what I'm saying is, really just listen in this, this below the surface way. Really trust that your subconscious, whatever's being held, has the capacity to release and express and inform you through your body. Good. So towards the end here, let's have some movement with this right arm. So if you're still on the left ribs, primarily just bringing it back a bit. If it's the elbow is bent quite a bit, just stretch it out more. So you're just extending that arm to again pull through that armpit, the shoulder, the right side of the rib cage. And then from here, what we're simply going to do, we're going to take a little interlude before we get to the other side, is just roll towards your right and put both shoulders on the bolster. So we've just now rolled over, so both shoulders are on the bolster. So don't go too low with this. And again, you have that pillow, blanket, towel for your head. And from here, just let both arms now come over the head. And again, the elbows can bend if they need to. You can open the arms wide. You can interlock the fingers. So we're just extending now the weight of the arms to open up the whole broad part of the upper body. And I do think, and this is what I was exploring today in my own practice, that this is not the kind of body work, consciousness work, where we have to go looking for something. This is not the kind of exploration where we feel something, identify it, and then come up with a big plan or strategy to get rid of it or fix it. This is the kind of body work where we're just allowing ourselves to sink as deeply into the visceral fabric of the body, to just listen to it and to begin to develop this understanding that the subconscious is holding, that this non-linear fabric of the fascia is holding. And how then do we relax enough and trust enough to let it start to release or shift or inform? So very lovely at the level of the intellect to just relax. There's nothing to do. So it's just a compressing, a pressure in, and then a listening, and then a following whatever we get from that listening. And again, be curious with the arms. Don't just set them and feel like they have to stay here. You can bend the elbows, you can straighten them out, you can bring the hands together, you can open them wide. There's no shortage here of sensory experience. So again, we're not using the structure to accomplish anything. We're using the physical structure of the body to explore the texture of what your somatic experience is. Good. So you can relax the arms now, and maybe you've guessed where we're going, but we're just going to go now right over to the right rib cage. So whatever you're using for your support will roll over to the right. And so in rolling, again, try not to get it up into the armpit or the lower waist, the broadest part of the right ribs. Arms can be, the legs can be wherever they want. A little pillow if you would like for the head. And now it's this left arm that we're going to utilize the weight of it. So it can be, and again, we want the left shoulder right over the right shoulder. Particularly don't lean forward. You can lean back a little bit, but not too far. But you can let that arm go back if you'd like, up and over. There's just a myriad. It's so interesting, these connections between just the weight of that arm into the shoulder girdle, through the ribs and down the spine. And if you do find yourself, starting a narrative about what you're feeling, see if you can at least catch that. So that's the linear intellect wanting to interfere, wanting to overlay some information. And it's usually based on conditioning or programming. So the moment the narrative begins, see if you can just relax that, be respectful with it, but also let your body, mind, heart know that you're really trying to give areas of your body a voice. So these areas that don't have the language that the mind has, they have a language, however. So we start to give voice to areas of the body that may have been too contracted, too afraid to express in certain ways. So we allow ourselves to go from the narrative of the intellect into this unknown, mysterious, fractal part of the system. Good. So you can relax that left arm, have a little movement with it. Stretch it out if you'd like. And then let's release out of this. And you can just keep rolling off now. So whatever you have for support, just roll off, and let's lie down and take a rest. And even the habit that we have in this practice of coming into asana and then coming into Shavasana, coming into the position and coming into rest. Even that, if you're, first of all, if your body wants to stay in something longer, if you want something, a counter pose, or even just some intuitive movement, I would invite you to see if you can really find any, demarcation boundary between stillness and movement. So fine to talk about stillness, but it's not necessarily a cessation of movement. There's a tremendous movement within the container of stillness. And there can also be tremendous stillness within the container of movement. So follow your body in as a natural and organic way as you possibly can. And certainly there is nothing, I have no problem with exploring something in a linear way, exploring something from an intellectual left hemisphere brain way. But for the most part, especially in our culture, we've been taught, especially around our bodies, that this is what we follow, that in a way it's superior. So what the yoga is suggesting is this feeling intelligence, and the invitation is to explore that. So when we can really start to trust that, we can really start to open up that exploration, then it creates a very different relationship with all of the sort of intellectual techniques that we've been applying to our body, to our mind, to our heart, to our sexuality. So feeling intelligence is the container that yin is really inviting us into. Okay, so let's come on and we're going to come forward and then back and then forward. And if those of you that have the bolster, we're just going to sit in front of the bolster and have the bolster horizontal and come over it. But I'd like to show it instead with the pillows and the blanket. For those of you that don't have the bolster, I just want to see if it's the same. So what I have done is I've set two pillows, one softer than the other. The top one's not as soft. So we do want a full arch in the back, and I've put some towel for my head. So we're not going to start here. So just be patient. We're going to start forward. I just want you to be prepared. So when we come out of the forward bend, we're going to go directly into this. So if you are using pillows or a combination, we just want to keep the buttocks on the floor and have a full arch of the spine. Yeah. So this, I could make this a little higher. Yeah. For me, I could add another layer to this. Oh, this is fine. You see how arched my back is. And then also for my neck, this is fine. But if it's not fine for your neck, then take something, a supplement, and put it under the back of the head. Yeah. So this is what the back bend will look like if you don't have the big bolster. If you do have the big bolster, it's just going to be under there, so the buttocks can be on the floor, and then it'll be as low down as you can, so you get the same effect of the full back bend. So whichever of those you are using, you can put that behind you now. So we're going to get to that after the forward bend. And then to come forward, let's just simply bring the soles of the feet together. So this is a good place to explore. The first, that lateral flexion wasn't so compatible to exploring what I was saying. So what I was saying is that, and let's just take a moment with this, is that when we come forward and it's no resistance pretty much. Yeah, just a little bit of pressure. This would be our range of motion. Yeah, so the pressure is very, very minimal. Certainly, hopefully, no discomfort unless you have an injury. So when I allow more weight now, I'm edging out of my range of motion into my end of motion. Yes, so this is where now the pressure is being applied. This is where the fascial barrier now is starting to take this. This is where the exploration begins. So you have the freedom then to come back to range of motion, to go back into the fascial barrier and explore, and then just listen to what the body, if the body wants to sway a little bit, or it needs to move the head, or whatever, it'll be unique to each of you. So let's do that now. Let's, with the soles of the feet together, let's go extra slowly so you can kind of feel that place for you. So not much restriction, not much contraction, not much discomfort. And then we start to enter a territory where, yes, I'm applying this compression intentionally. And it may not just be the lower back, it may be other parts of the body. So be open to the entire range of your skeletal, muscular, and fascial system. It's all responding together, really. And then just settle in. And now this is where the exploration begins. Let the breathing just be light and free and open. Let your breathing have a quality of gratitude that you are breathing, and that you have the wherewithal and the luxury to be able to just sit quietly in a yoga posture. And I mentioned earlier that the fascia is so much more than just a fibrous network. That it's also a primary transport medium of your body. So just a tremendous amount going on. Uh, and it's gentle pressure. It's creating, a biochemical and the hormonal effect at the same time. So this is what then becomes nonlinear. This is what then becomes fractal. Is you are not doing this. The pressure is doing this. This is a natural response of your body to come back into balance and equilibrium. Good. So let's begin to unstack our spine just very slowly. And then just sit with this for a moment. Do have the spine elongated and just notice your body may just want to sit very still and just absorb the compression. You may want to have a bit of movement. Uh, this is the listening, and this is what I'm saying. Part of the exploration is seeing if you can find any boundary between stillness and movement. And I'm talking right here about the level of energy. This is such an important study of being in this body. That there are no either ors. There's only continuum. There's only space. There's only a pulsation. Good. So you can open the legs now. One of the things that I want to mention for the backward bend, especially if you're using the bolster, if you're using pillows, you can sort of stack them appropriately. But if you're coming over this big bolster and it feels too compressive, especially that we're going to be here for some time, you can sit up on something. So I'm pulling one of my towels under my hips, and then I'm lessening the compression. So again, no need to go to great depths here and be right at the edge of struggling. We always want to start out with what we consider just our range of motion. Like, yeah, this is nice. And over time, that end of motion will start to sort of shift and we'll feel the pressure building. So we don't want to be on that edge of not safe. So if you need that, please by all means have that. Also something for your head. Just let your arms relax out to the side. If you've built something up with pillows and towels and it's not quite right, remove a few or add a few. But we just want a big, big arch of the spine. And then we'll just stay here for some time. And again, allowing your breath to be gentle, light, even a sense of playfulness, just sort of the feeling like this breath is, as intimate as you can be with yourself, and just appreciating that intimacy that you are breathing, that you get to breathe, whether you're conscious of it or not. And let me just go back to something I said before, and you can just let this kind of float through you. No need to try to understand it. This is just a really, I'm sharing it more so it can just be lovely imagery that kind of vibrates in. But understanding that our, fascial network is one of our, primary transport mechanisms, and that your nutrition and your water and your oxygen, this is how through this system enters the cell. So you can eat all the good food you want, but it has to be able to get into the cell. You can drink all the water you want, but it has to have a mode to enter the cell. And the same thing with our oxygen, the same thing with our breathing. We're not just breathing in and out of the lungs, we're breathing into a system that permeates into all of our cells. So we want this fibrous network, this connective tissue system to be open and free and fluid. So the nutrition and the water and the oxygen can be received where it's most important. And then just simply trust your experience to be nonlinear, fractal, and quantum. Allow the subconscious to take over. This really is precisely what presence is. Presence is to simply be open to the presence of experience before something habitual is evoked. So this is why we go to quiet mind. This is why we are resting as much as anything. Our investigation is the simple presence of what is before us, the simple presence of what is unfolding before the habits get woven in, get misdirected, get chattery, get noisy, so we can really explore our moment-to-moment experience in what is the complexity of the body-mind really holding. What is it really? Ultimately, the question of yoga is, what is it that is keeping us really from awakening? Not even about the physical body, not even about the psychology. It's about the quality of awakening. So please bend your knees and put both feet firmly on the floor. And before we even start to come out, I'd like to invite you to allow both knees to go either left or right very, very slowly. So once you get down to your range of motion on one side, just hover there for a bit. You may want to go a little deeper, a little more pressure into the hips, the lower back here in this twist, or you may want to come back up and just go back to your range of motion on the other side. So again, we're calling range of motion a little bit before the pressure starts to build. This is where you would naturally just be able to go. You know, some pressure, obviously, but not that sort of weight of the legs. So do this for a bit. Just take your time, whatever, just to explore this, especially when we're in a deep backward bend, to twist in this reclining place can be very interesting. Good. So with the feet still on the floor now, let's have some, have some safety in the lumbar area, and just best to roll off of this whole contraption. So just rolling off it as much as you can. You can push the bolster out of the way, and then just curl on your side, or again, whatever whatever you're inclined to express at this point. And we'll just take a little time. We're not going to take a long rest here because we're going to go back to the initial forward bend. So we're really kind of energetically still in the backward bend, and we want to see how the forward bend accepts that. Good. So if you're ready, nice and slowly, let's come on up, and we'll bring the soles of the feet together. And have any, any support that you need. Always have the support nearby. The recommendation is to go nice and slowly, so we feel like, oh, here's my range of motion. This is open. This is natural. The pressure does not feel restrictive. And then when you start to enter into that, this is when you may want to have some pillows or blankets or just something to support that. Or you may not even want to go so quickly. You may want to just really take your time and feel that the body itself is inviting you, that I'm not the one inviting you. You're not inviting the body, but the body itself is saying, okay, we can go a little bit more. I want you to hover here. I want you to pay attention here. So in each and every one of these postures, we bring our magnifying glass with us and look as closely as possible. Just naturally continue to observe that there is a part of your mind that is always quiet. This takes no effort. This is just right outside of thought, nowhere else. So thoughts can just continue to, chatter and attempt to distract you, but the quiet place of the mind is always there. And then just explore for yourself. There's certainly a quality of stillness. If you look a little closer, there's a quality of movement. See if you can find any place that they actually separate. See if there's a point of demarcation between this internal movement, this flow of process, and this lovely deepening stillness. So let's again come on out, restacking the spine, letting the spine elongate as we emerge. And now, Willie, we will take a longer rest now, so you can relax your legs out and just slide down, or if you have an alternative position, child's pose or fetal, whatever feels best, or you want to jump around a bit, let's take a break. And the other interesting thing, well, there's so many interesting things about the way that we're, approaching the body at the level of this, fascial network is, for a long time, it was believed there were only three phases of water, that there was liquid, there was vapor, and there was ice. But the discovery of liquid crystal, this is the very nature of this fibrous network of connective tissue. And it's just, unbelievably fascinating, because I said earlier how the pressure is then stimulating biochemical and hormonal effects in the body, but it's also stimulating this bioelectrical current, this aliveness through this fluid crystal, this liquid crystal of the body. So we're just this amazing system that is, really beyond our comprehension. This is why this practice can be so deepening and so beneficial, because we acknowledge that. We acknowledge that it is beyond our comprehension, and that we can cultivate the feeling intelligence, this nonlinear aspect, this really wisdom. It's the same thing. This feeling intelligence, this somatic intuition is a form of wisdom. So differentiating that from knowledge that we hold, we also have this incredible depth of wisdom. But if it's tightened up in fascial restriction and repressed memory and deep discomfort that the body can't open and breathe and function properly, then that wisdom itself is inhibited. So we can collect all the knowledge we want. The knowledge is always going to be knowledge. The wisdom is textural. The wisdom is alive. It's present. It's current. It's what we're wanting more of, the free flow of the body. Okay, so let's come on up, please. And I'm going to show some modifications for this one, because this one I understand is not for everyone, but it's such a lovely pose if you can find your way into it, even using some, some bolstering. Nope, that's not the pose. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep the left leg just extended out in front of you. So yeah, I'm just sitting sideways so you can see what I'm going to do with the right leg and see the bolstering. So the left leg will just be extended out. If you're able to, we're going to take this right leg and bend it under so the knees are lined up. We're not opening it out because we're going to try to lie back. We're going to add a backward bend, which will, for some of us, challenge the hip flexor, the quadricep, and the knee, not to mention the ankle. And if it's too much on the ankle and you're going to try it, nothing wrong with putting something soft under the ankle. This is also a very potent ankle stretch as well. Yeah, good. So if right away you're feeling there's no way, nope, then you could take a bunch of stuff and put it behind you. Yep. So instead of calling them bolsters and blankets and towels, I'm just going to call it a bunch of stuff. So this one, I could even put the pillow back here too. So this is what I mean by a bunch of stuff. Yeah. And then it takes a lot of the compression off of this area, ankle, knee, quad, hip, and you could do it supported. Yeah. Good. No need to do it supported if you have the range of motion. And again, we're being, mindful of the distinction between range of motion and end of motion. You could do it without that. And if you notice that my knee has come up a bit, this is my quadricep, and it hopefully will just soften over time. So those are two options if you're going to try bending the knee back. And if there's those of you that are like, nope, cringing, it's not going to happen, or you have knee injuries, totally understand, then what you want to do is put a little something, this blanket's too soft, but get a bit of a roll, because we want to affect the backward bend. So get a bit of a roll and put a roll under the back, and then take the right leg and just pull it up and in. So you're still getting the bent knee, not as much pressure, but something. So this is what we will use to sort of modify without taking the knee to that limit. I do understand knees are very tricky. So left leg extended out, right leg up and in like you were in a butterfly position, sole of the foot on the inside of the left. Or if you're willing to give it a try, you can bolster yourself up as much as possible. And we're starting, no matter what, with the left leg out, and either the right leg bent in and under, or the right leg with the sole of the foot on the inside of the left leg. Okay, good. And I do think another very important distinction between, knowledge and wisdom is we may or may not have knowledge. We may need to go get some, and we can always get it. We can go places and we can read things and we can have life experiences and we can accumulate as much knowledge as we would like. The understanding with the somatic meditation is that we already have the wisdom. The heart knows how to beat. The gut knows how to digest. So what we're simply doing is we're simply weaving in and removing anything that's keeping us from this this level of wisdom, this level of intelligence, this somatic intelligence. So good not to confuse the two. So I've been suggesting to breathe in a light and gentle and a playful way. Another way to ease into that is to notice that sometimes we breathe and it just feels constricted. So this is obviously reflecting the restriction of the body and certainly the restriction of the mind. And sometimes we breathe and it feels very expansive. And again, this is reflecting often our environment, our mental state, the physical tightness of the body. So sometimes it's nice just to see that. Very often in yoga, we're very quick to just change the breath, to direct it, to breathe deeper or to do something with the breath. But sometimes it's nice to reverse that and see like, oh, this is exactly how my breath feels. It feels constricted or it feels expansive or somewhere in between. And then let that sort of flow into how you're feeling and see like, oh, right, that kind of breathing is reflecting this. That breathing is reflecting this. Good. So if you do have that right knee bent back, the best way to exit here is to just start to roll over to your left. So roll over to your left a bit, just enough to release that right leg. So release the right leg. And if you don't have it, you can straighten it out if you have it bent, and then remove the roll from your back. And we're just going to lay here just for a few moments. This again, we're going to explore forward bend from the backward bend without a longer rest. But let's just have both legs extended out, nothing under your back. And then let's come on up. You can push yourself up. And so from having that left leg extended, we're going to switch that now and we'll extend the right leg out. So right leg is extended out. And now we're going to take the left foot and put it somewhere on the inside of the right leg. So do go very slowly here. Again, what I'm saying is the sort of the structural momentum of the backward bend for most of us will still be present. I'd be surprised if it wasn't. So take this forward bend now very, very slowly. Right leg is out, sole of the left foot on the somewhere along the inside of that right leg. Use whatever support you need coming forward so you don't go too, if we hit that fascial barrier too deeply, too quickly, like I said earlier, the body, and even if you're not consciously aware of it, it can go into protection mode. This is not only going to reinforce the physical tightness, but it can also push the traumas back down into the system even deeper. Yeah, so we don't often know, the exact moment the trauma entered the body or how it entered the body, but it did. So we don't want to repress that. We don't want to push that down. We want the body to feel open and safe and relaxed so things can start to bubble up a bit. So ease in, relax. You come to your range of motion. It's fine to stay there for a while. This is why we take the time that we take, so you can explore all of these things I'm talking about. It's never about, here's the pose, let's get in it,
hold it, see how long, see if something happens. I hope something happens, come out of it. It's for you to explore the juiciness and the intelligence and the texture of whatever it is you're experiencing. And the beautiful thing is, it doesn't take years of experience. It doesn't take really knowledge of yoga, because we're all experiencing something. What is the nature of this experience that is presenting itself to you? This is where we bring that magnifying glass. You are aware of an experience. What is the nature? What is the texture of that experience? Is the breath feeling constricted and small? Or is the breath feeling expansive and infinite? Is the feeling of discomfort evoking a sense of struggle, a sense of a despair? Or is the discomfort evoking an understanding of therapeutic pain, therapeutic discomfort? and the ultimate wisdom of the body and the soma and its ability to share and communicate something of tremendous value. And it doesn't have to be either or. You're just taking out your magnifying glass and exploring the closeness and the intimacy of your experience. Okay, so let's come on up. Just relax your body up. You can straighten out that leg. And let's take a bit of a rest here, since we did that back and that forward on one side, and we'll do the other side. And, just to say a little bit more about, this bending the knee back in this way. So, I completely understand, because it's such a complicated synovial joint, and there's always, there, or not always, I'm sorry, but there can be, layered and habitual, old injuries and fears around this. So the way to approach this, instead of completely avoiding it, and this is why we have, so many different ways to prop the body up and modify, is wherever that range of motion is, to approach it little by little. So in this approach, there's never, all or nothing. There's never a completed pose. There's never a template of this is what it should look like. You're using the information from the sensations to guide you. But on the other hand, if we always avoid something because we've made up our mind that no, this is not going to ever work, then we just keep it the way it is, and the body doesn't have a chance to get into these places and to inform us and to to change. And the body is very resilient. So I'm not trying to convince anyone to do anything they don't want to, but I'm just saying the basic things that I'm showing are just these very, very open-ended, generalized templates approaching different areas to evoke different things. So if you can find a way to approach something little by little by little, you would be surprised how it can change. That's just the way the body is. It wants to open. It wants to be resilient. It wants to create as many pathways of openness and fluidity as it can. Because these places where it's closed and constricted and tight and it's blocked, this is places that these modes of transportation cannot then feed the cells the nutrition, the water, and the oxygen. So we want the whole body free and fluid and open. And sometimes it takes tremendous patience, and we have to be careful how we head into these places. So with that being said, let's come on up. My little knee pep talk there, because I know about the knees. I had to rehabilitate mine. It took years really to get my knees to do what they do now. When I first started this yin practice, this certainly wasn't the case. So I know from experience. So this time we're going to let the right leg extend out. We're going to take this left knee, and if you're exploring bending it back with nothing, you can just bend it back, come back to the forearms, check in if everything's good, have something under the ankle if you'd like, and then let it come up if it will. Don't try to hold it down, obviously, there's too much going on there. If you're thinking like, well, maybe I could try it, then you can take whatever contraptions you have and put behind you. So the more, the merrier, if you're even interested in addressing that knee, quadricep, ankle a little bit. And, or if you're not today, even with that inspiring talk, not today, I understand, then just release it. Don't bend it at all. Put the foot on the inside of the right leg, but put a little roll under the lower back, because this, with the knee bent back, is a backward bend. Yeah, a little uneven, but it still is. So if you're just putting the sole of the foot on the inside of the right leg, just have something to affect a bit of a lumbar backward bend, and you get almost the same effect without the knee. One of the, I was going to say one of the problems, but it's actually not a problem because it's one of the ways that we learn. But one of the limitations with, continually having to put a label or a definition on what we're feeling is that it really ends and it stops the somatic exploration, because then we've labeled it, and the conceptual linguistic part of us has a way of then taking over. So when I say that we're, learning and attempting how to give areas of our body a voice, don't misinterpret that. We're not trying to give areas of our body a linguistic voice, words, stories. We're wanting to let those areas of the bodies have a voice in the way that they want to viscerally, physically, emotionally, somatically express themselves. So we don't need to overlay a story. And sometimes it's certainly, at some point, a story may come in, an insight may come in. It's never either or. This feeling intelligence is vast and it's intelligent. But there are areas of the body that are dormant, that do not have a voice. And so how to relax the need to conceptualize and open up the place of embodiment and just be as embodied as you can. And if it something wants to express, that's what I was saying earlier. Allow it to express. Give it the freedom to express. That could be movement or sound or tears or laughter. And also it can be very creative. You know, these energies that have been holding and holding and holding, they want to express. And we can allow a conduit of creativity to come from, from deep pain and repression. So once again, best if you, especially if you do have the knee, that left knee bent back this time, just roll over to the right, see if it will unhinge. If it unhinges, let's straighten it out. If you didn't have it bent, just straighten that left leg out and remove the little roll you had for the lower back. And again, we'll just take a few moments here as we're going to continue forward. Good. So we can come on up now. Just roll to your side, push yourself up. And basically the same thing we did on the other side. The left leg will be out this time since we had that one bent back. So we'll release the knee. We'll take the sole of the right foot, put it on the inside of this left leg. And just a nice slow bit of unwinding from that backward bend. A softening, just as gentle and as slow and as careful as you can, coming forward. what's really interesting is that the body itself is just very quite capable of experiencing itself without getting into any kind of linguistic or dualistic quandary. We don't necessarily need the continual internal dialogue. And this is part of what we're exploring, is just allowing the body to experience itself. And this also is the exploration of it being nonlinear, because when we don't apply the all the directions and the markers, and it's an elbow and it's a knee, we can't really grasp anything. It's just a visceral experience of a body, of an energy, really. So let the body just feel itself. Good. So let's come on up, please, nice and slowly. And let's take a break. So just lie down and make yourself comfortable. We'll take a bit of a rest here. So I mentioned earlier something about yoga being about awakening, and I sometimes, I was going to say I sometimes hesitate to use these, esoteric terms, but we know that's not true. I love to use these metaphysical, esoteric terms, but I also like to break them down and really understand them. I think I mentioned I put on the reading list I've been reading. I'm reading it for the third time. It's just out, this Prachabindya Ridyam, this Gita from the 9th century called The Essence of Recognition. It's so incredibly simple and beautiful. And someone a couple of weeks ago, they emailed me and they just asked me, they said, are you teaching yoga or are you teaching non-duality? And I just answered back, yes. So this underlying energy, if you will, of yoga, the practice of yoga, the study of yoga being to facilitate our awakening, a lovely way to understand it, especially when we're working with the
the fibers of the fascial system, which is the fibers of the body, is just imagine if you actually believed that the clothes you were wearing were you. So you just believed that the clothes were you. And then someone came along and said, those clothes aren't really you. You could just take that on faith, but you probably wouldn't really believe it because you have a belief. You believe that the clothes are yourself. So what this person suggests is, well, let's do some yoga with the clothes. Let's first take off the shirt and let's just kind of weave it apart a little bit. Let's just kind of see what's there. And then maybe you soak it a little bit and you're gentle with it. And this is your yoga, the exploration of the texture and the nature of this fabric. And you start to see that it's just woven, that the more you pull it apart, there's a lot of space there. And you get an individual thread and you unweave that. And you begin to see, whoa, there's nothing there. This clothing that I thought was me is not me, because I have experientially discovered there's nothing there. And so it's the same thing with the weave of the body. So we all are walking around believing I am this body. It's very obvious. I have a belief that I am the body. So what yoga is saying, well, let's then explore it. Let's go into this sensation that you believe is your body and start to weave it apart a little bit. Start to actually see if you can find what the nature and the texture is of it. So it's a very experiential way to enter into these belief systems, what we've come to believe is ourself, and explore what that really means experientially. And so this, in the terminology of yoga, is the awakening. The awakening is, I have a mind, but I'm not my mind. I have a body, but I'm not my body. But yoga is not a belief system. It's meant to be, it's meant to be explored from the layer and the level of texture itself. Just like if you're exploring the texture of a shirt, you're exploring the texture of skin and bone, breathing, heartbeat, which can only be done as experience. What is that experience of this visceral somatic arising? And this is what in yoga we would call awakening to the nature of oneself. Okay, so let's bring those alleged bodies up. And what I would like to do is that you do not need to bend your knees for this, but if you would like to bend your knees for this, you certainly can. So if you just want to sit cross-legged, if you had enough knee bending, and that was plenty for you, you can. If you would like to sit between the heels, you could do that as well. If you want to ease in a bit, like I was saying, to explore, you could sit up on several layers of bolstering and just approach that range of motion of the knee. But this is primarily for the shoulders. So we just want the lower body to be stable. Also, if the shoulders are a little tight, I rolled up a towel here that you could use to do the same thing that we're going to do. So I think what I'll do is I'll just turn around. If you're watching, if you're listening, the explanation should suffice. But if you're also watching, hopefully you can hear me. So what we're going to do is we're going to find your lower body stability, and then we're going to take both arms will kind of be behind the back, and then we'll take the right hand and try to hold on to the left elbow. Okay? So if you can't get the left elbow, you could go for the forearm or the wrist or the hand. We just want to restrict this left shoulder. This is why I rolled up the towel. So what you could do is you could hold a towel in your left hand and just pull it over to the right. So now I'm restricting that shoulder. So I'll turn around and show you how that looks. So instead of reaching back for the left elbow, I'm holding this towel and then pulling this towel. So I'm pulling that left shoulder back either way. Yeah. And if you're able to get that left elbow, you could just leave the hand back there, but you could also bring it forward a bit. Yeah, like that.
So let's set that up now. I'd like to time this so we don't stay here for too long because it has a certain intensity to it. So hopefully you have something holding on to this left arm to pull this left shoulder and restrict it a bit. Yeah. So if we're doing that with the left shoulder, oh no, excuse me. I'm sorry, I always mix up left and right. If we have the right hand holding onto the left elbow, then we're restricting the right shoulder. Ha, who knew? So this right shoulder is being restricted. Yeah, if we're holding something on the left side. So what I would like to do now is take the head and bring the left ear to the left shoulder. Yeah, so we're now pulling the weight of the head over to the left, and we're restricting that right shoulder. So let's just come into a bit of stillness here just to feel all of these strands. And again, just honoring the range of motion is very little pressure, obviously a bit. So we want to find that barrier first. Then if you'd like to bring the head down a little bit more, maybe bring the chin down, or just some intuitive movement with the head back and forth, this would be a good time to do that. But try not to move quickly. Try not to move as if you're trying to, push through it or wiggle it away. I'm not even sure that's possible. We're really just trying to, feel the three primary systems here. We have the skeletal system, the muscular system, and the connective system, the fascial system, which binds them and weaves them together. So we just ease into that and feel that relationship. And then finally, whatever movement you would like with your head, to just let it go anywhere it would like. Just explore the range of motion of the weight of the skull. And this is certainly an area of your body that could certainly use a voice. I don't think it's enough just to walk around and be like, oh, I have a pain in the neck. It's not enough. We need to get into the entirety of what our experience is and what we've been holding, the biological memories that we hold in this area of the body. Good. So wherever the head is now, let's just bring it so we now have a straight spine. And then just a few down, so chin to the chest. And then very, very gently chin up towards the ceiling, but just a little bit tricky to do this. And then let's bring the bottom of the chin again, one more time, parallel to the floor. Take a nice inhale breath and just open the mouth wide and stretch the face. Stretch the jaw muscle. And then you can close your mouth and let's release that right arm and just let both arms just have a little bit of movement. And then we're going to do the other side. So please check in with your knees if you need a little, you want to sit up on something or undo them and sit cross-legged, that would be, this would be a good time to think about that. So this time we'll take that left hand and bring it around, and we're going to now hold on to the right elbow or forearm or wrist. And obviously now we're restricting that left shoulder. Yeah. So if you're using the towel, you just hold on to the towel and pull that left arm over. Yeah. Good. And if you would like to, if you have the elbow and you want to put the hand on top of the thigh, that would be fine. So feeling the restriction on the left shoulder will now take the right ear towards the right shoulder. So we'll just come laterally first, so without any movement or twist, just to ease into that. And again, my directions are just a general suggestion of a template. Your body really is the most intelligent guide that you have. And also, this is another place to explore what I was suggesting earlier, any demarcation between stillness and movement. So just being still, and notice when you move, is there a way for you to discern that? So we continue to move away from these sort of linear labels of stillness and movement, but to see at some level the dualistic tendency just dissolves when we look at something closely and carefully. And just as you would sort of gently, kind of tease the weave of the cloth apart, the same thing here. This is simply the fabric of your body, and we're seeing what's there. Good. So whatever movement your head is wanting to take you, whatever direction, and then let's bring the spine back to a straight spine, if you will. And I'd like to just bring the chin down to the chest, and then the head up, and we'll do this for a few times. So not just dropping the head back, but really feeling elongating the cervical spine. So up and back a bit, and then back down. And then on the next upward, take an inhale, and then open the mouth wide. Really stretch it, all of these, the fascial fabric of the face. We want to just stretch it, enliven it. And then let's bring the head back to a straight spine. Let's release that left shoulder, let go of that right arm, and just have some movement of the arms. Just whatever feels good. And then I'm going to suggest we're going to lay down and come into our final Shavasana. But after that, if you want to just roll up something and put it under your neck. So we'll come into final Shavasana, do it however you would like, obviously. But after that, this can be really supportive. So to just take a nice roll, so the very natural curve of the cervical spine is supported. Yeah. And then we'll just come into our Shavasana and just relax. So make yourself as comfortable as you can. So just take your time and relax. I'm going to close our practice while you're in Shavasana. But just one thing that I just want to share with you as you're continuing to relax is to, to just be aware that this, this awakening that yoga is genuinely and sincerely and for centuries has been pointing to is nothing that is extraordinary. And this often keeps many of us from thinking that we could ever just simply awaken to the ordinary presence of life, the ordinary presence of the beauty of this moment, because it's been often reported and misunderstood that it's a mystical experience that's only for an elite few. It's simply not the case. It's very analogous to when we go to sleep and we have these interesting, sometimes fearful, sometimes blissful dreams and many characters, and it seems as real can be. And then we just awaken and we're like, oh, that was a dream. And we just get on with our life. So when we're caught in the semantic spider webs of our life and of fear and projecting and preoccupation and what's going to happen and what did happen, it's exhausting. And it's mind noise. It's very noisy. So yoga is a sincere invitation to just simply wake up to the beauty and the presence that you're here, that you're able to experience. And the nature of that experience is the nature of who you are, is the nature of yourself. And we can call it awareness or consciousness, divine presence. Doesn't matter what we call it. We're all conscious, we're all awake. And this exploration always begins with going to this quiet mind that's always there. Namaste.